In a quiet forest, a deadly trap waited for its victim. Days passed, and a mighty beast lay dying, till a small human boy appeared. What began as an act of kindness that day would turn into a bond stronger than blood, a friendship that defied species, and a promise that would decide the fate of the entire human race. The trap in the forest was quiet, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the trees are holding their breath. Hidden under a layer of damp leaves, a cruel metal trap waited for its prey. Its rusty jaws, sharp as knives, had been there for years, forgotten by whoever placed it, but still ready to bite. I didn't see it until it was too late. One moment, I was walking along the forest path, my claws sinking into the soft earth. The next, a loud snap echoed through the trees, and searing pain exploded in my leg. The trap had clamped shut with brutal force, its jagged teeth biting into my flesh. I roared, the sound shaking the leaves above, but the forest only answered. With echoes, hours passed, then days. The pain didn't fade. It burned with every small movement. My hunger clawed at my stomach, and thirst dried my throat until every swallow felt like swallowing sand. Above me, carrion birds circled there, black wings cutting through the gray sky. They were waiting for me to die. I was ready to let them have me. The fight had drained from my body. I had been born alone in a cold crater, survived my early years fending off giant gray predators, and roamed these alien woods for years. But now, all of that strength meant nothing. A hidden piece of iron was going to end me. That's when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the forest. Something crashing through the undergrowth, branches snapping, footsteps quick and uneven. My head lifted slowly, and I braced myself to see whatever creature had come to finish me off. Instead, I saw a human boy. He froze when his eyes met mine. I was huge compared to him, the size of a beast humans might call a grizzly bear. My horns curved above my head like blades, my teeth sharp and ready. If I had been at full strength, I could have ended him in an instant. But he didn't run. Instead, the boy took a cautious step closer. He wore strange blue coverings on his pale body and carried a small pack on his back. His eyes were wide, but not with pure fear. There was something else there. Curiosity. When he got close enough, I snapped my jaws at him. The sound made him stumble back, almost falling. I expected him to flee. He didn't. He set his pack on the ground and started searching through it. When his hands came out, they were holding a small metal box, decorated in bright colors. He opened it and pulled out a thin, white, square object. He tossed it toward me, and it landed just within reach. The smell of meat hit me instantly. Rich, salty, irresistible. I didn't take my eyes off him as I nudged the square aside and grabbed the meat with my teeth. It was gone in seconds. My thirst roared to life, making me almost dizzy. The boy seemed to notice. He emptied the box, pulling out more small packages and a clear bottle filled with water. Pouring it into the empty container, he slid it toward me with a stick. I bent down, my snout sinking into the cool water, drinking deeply, until every drop was gone. The taste was like nothing else, clean, pure, and alive. As I drank, I felt something strange. The pressure on my leg was loosening. I looked down to see the boy crouched by the trap, small hands gripping the metal jaws. His face was twisted in effort as he pried them apart. His fingers trembled, but he didn't stop until I could pull my leg free. The moment I did, the trap snapped shut again with a loud clang, missing him by inches. He scrambled back, breathing hard, his eyes wide again, but this time, the knowledge of what I could do now that I was free, I stood over him, my shadow covering his small frame. I could feel his fear like heat. I lowered my head slowly until my horns brushed his chest. I could hear his heartbeat, fast but steady. I didn't know why he had freed me, knowing full well I could kill him as easily as breathing. But in that moment, something changed inside me. I felt no desire to harm him. Instead, I pushed my thoughts, my gratitude into his mind, my teeth, my wings, my blood, my flesh, and my hide. Are yours? A small one. Fear nothing while I live. The boy's heart calmed. His hand rose, trembling at first, then steady, and rested between my horns. He smiled faintly. "I'll call you Snappy," he said softly. "We'll be best friends. Forever, and just like that." I knew my life had been spared for a reason. The bond grows after that day in the forest. I didn't leave the boy's side. He led me along winding trails until we came to his home, a small wooden building at the edge of the forest. A narrow gravel road connected it to the rest of the world, but it felt far from everything else. The boy, whose name I learned was Tim, gave me more food from his pack. Thin slices of round pink meat he called bologna. It was salty and soft, and I devoured it gratefully. Then he showed me a hidden place at the tree line, a medium-sized metal shack, dusty and unused. "You can stay here," he whispered. "Mom would be mad if she found out about you." I didn't know why his mother must not know. I didn't care. The shack was dark, quiet, and hidden, far more comfortable than the cold caves I had once lived in. I curled up inside, my body fitting snugly against the walls. From that day forward, I stayed close to Tim. He would sneak me food scraps from his kitchen, leftovers wrapped in shiny paper, sometimes even entire meals he saved just for me. I hunted for myself when I could, but his offerings were different. They weren't just nourishment, they were gifts. Seasons changed. The bright greens of summer faded into the gold and red of autumn. Then came winter, the world turning white, the air sharp with frost. Tim would visit me, his breath puffing in clouds, his hands cold, but his smile warm. We didn't speak out loud, at least, not the way humans do. Instead, I shared my thoughts with him directly, a connection I still don't fully understand. By the time Tim grew from a boy into a young man, our bond was unshakable. He would come to me with his joys, his fears, his secrets. I would listen, and when he was silent, I would let him rest against my side. My wings curled around him like a blanket. Then came the day that changed everything. It was late afternoon, the sun dipping low when I heard a strange sound, the low rumble of an engine, followed by hurried footsteps. From the edge of the forest, I saw men in white clothing stepping out of a vehicle. They carried a long, wheeled stretcher. Inside the house, Tim's mother lay pale and still. Tim came out with them, his face streaked with tears. His hands trembled as he gripped my side, burying his face in my flank. "I wish I could help her, Snappy," he whispered. His voice was breaking. "She's fought so hard, but it's only gotten worse. It just keeps spreading. She's going to die, and I can't stop it." I felt his sorrow like it was my own. It cut deeper than any trap, heavier than any wound. This human had saved me when I had nothing left to give, and now he was losing the most important person. In his world, that night, after he cried himself to sleep against my hide, I made my decision. I rose silently, my claws clicking softly against the ground. Leaning over him, I bit into my own ankle, feeling the sharp sting as golden blood welled up. It shimmered faintly in the moonlight, glowing with a life of its own. I lowered my head and gently brushed the glowing blood against his lips, my blood to heal and rejuvenate. "As you slaked my thirst that fateful day," I thought, willing the words into him. The glow faded slowly, and I stepped back, curling around him protectively. Until dawn broke, days passed. At first, nothing seemed different, but then Tim came to me with wide eyes and a trembling smile. "It just went away," he said, "like a miracle. The tests keep showing the cancer is dying. She should be able to come home within the month." The joy in his voice was like sunlight breaking through clouds. I felt it warm me from the inside out. He didn't know what I had done, but it didn't matter. His mother's life had been saved, and that was enough. From that moment on, my bond with Tim became something more than friendship. It was a promise, one I would keep for as long as I lived. I would protect him and his family from anything that dared to threaten them. And deep in my heart, I knew this was only the beginning of the life we would share. Shadows at the door. The night was quiet at first. The moon hung low. The trees around the little house swayed in a slow wind. From the metal shed, I watched the warm light in the kitchen window. I could smell soup and bread. I could hear Tim and his mother laughing softly. It was a good sound. It made my chest feel calm. Then I heard something else. A car rolled up the gravel road with its headlights off. The engine clicked as it cooled. The doors opened quietly. 4 men stepped out. They moved like shadows, careful and fast. They smelled like alcohol, smoke, and anger. They were strangers, and they did not belong here. They pulled long metal, tools from the car. I knew what those shapes meant. They were human weapons. They did not knock on the door. They did not call out. They just crept forward. I did not wait. I spread my wings and pushed off from the ground. The wind roared under me. I beat my wings once, twice, and swept over the yard. I landed hard between the house and the men. The dirt jumped. The men stumbled back and fell. One dropped his weapon and scrambled for it with shaking hands. I roared. It was not a sound I used often. It was the sound of caves and storms and fire. It filled the yard and bounced off the trees. A porch light flashed on. The front door swung open. Tim stood there, chest heaving, eyes wide, snappy. He said, "What's going on?" His mother came to the doorway, one hand on the frame, her face pale. She saw me, my claws, my teeth, my wings, and fear crossed her eyes. But she did not scream. She looked past me to the men on the ground. "Who are they?" Tim asked, stepping out onto the porch. I spoke to him the way I always had mind. They came with weapons. They smell of harm. They were moving toward the door. "Give me your command, Tim." He looked from me to the men. One clutched his shoulder where my talons had dug into him when I landed. Blood leaked through his jacket. He stared at me like he was seeing a nightmare. Tim's jaw tightened. His hands shook. For a moment, anger flashed across his face. Then it faded. His shoulders dropped as he took a breath. "Mercy," he said. "To me, let them go." I lowered my claws and sat back on my haunches. My body blocked the door. My tail curled around the steps. I did not blink. I watched the men. Tim walked forward, just far enough so they could hear him clearly. His voice was steady now. "I don't know why you came here, robbery, revenge, or something worse," he said. "But you are going to leave now. Take your friend, get in your car, drive away. This is your warning. This is your chance. Do not waste your life on a bad choice." None of the men spoke at first. They looked at each other, then at me, then back at Tim. The one with the wounded shoulder flinched as he tried to stand. Another helped him up. The third grabbed the dropped weapon with shaking fingers, then slowly set it back down on the ground. "We're going," he said hoarsely. They lifted the injured man and staggered toward the car. The doors slammed. The engine turned over. The car rolled down the gravel and back into the night. The sound faded. The yard was quiet again. Only then did Tim's mother find her voice. It came out thin and shaky. "Tim, what is that?" We both turned to her at the same time. I felt Tim's mood shift. It was heavy and sad. He lowered his head a little, like a child who had hidden a broken thing for too long. "Mom," he said softly. "This is Snappy." He swallowed. His eyes glistened in the porch light. "Do you remember when I was in grade school? That day? I came home muddy, and my lunchbox was broken. I told you some older boys pushed me into a ditch." He glanced at me, then back at her. That was true. But it wasn't the whole story. He stepped closer to her. "I gave my lunch to Snappy," he said. "I freed him from a trap in the forest. He was hurt and alone. He's been living in Dad's old shed ever since." His mother stared at me, then at Tim, then back at me. Fear cracked, and something else came through anger. Yes, but it was the sharp, protective anger of a mother. "And you never told me," she said, her voice strong now. "You befriended a dragon and said nothing? It's Timothy Derek Kemmer. If you weren't an adult, I'd tan your hide for keeping a secret like that." Even I flinched a little at the force in her tone. But then she breathed in, breathed out. Her shoulders lowered. She pressed a hand against her chest and looked at me. This time her fear had changed into something softer. Maybe curiosity, maybe wonder. "You've been here all this time?" she asked. I bowed my head. Slowly, I curled my tail away from the steps, giving her space to stand beside her son. I folded my wings against my back and lowered my horns so I would look smaller. "Mom," Tim said gently, "he's the reason you're still here." She blinked. "What?" He looked at me and I looked back. We did not tell her everything. We did not speak of golden blood and midnight promises. But the truth sat between us like a candle flamed quiet, steady, warm. She stepped forward, just one step. She reached out a trembling hand, stopped, then slowly set it between my horns. Her palm was small and warm, held still. I could hear her heart. It was fast, but it began to slow. "Thank you," she whispered. I closed my eyes for a moment. It was a human word, a small word, but it felt very big. From that night on, nothing was the same, and yet everything was better. I was no longer just a secret in the forest. I was a guardian at the door, a friend at the table, a shadow in the yard that brought safety instead of fear. Tim's mother would sometimes peek out the window and smile. Tim would sit on the porch steps and talk about his day, even when no words were needed. But peace never lasts forever. On some nights, the wind carried strange scent smoke from far cities, metal and fire from machines that did not belong to this world. On some mornings, the sky looked too bright, too sharp, like a blade. I did not know it yet. But a much greater shadow was already moving toward us, one that would not sneak up a gravel road with its headlights off. One that would blot out the sun. And when it arrived, the choice Tim made that night, mercy over violence, would matter more than either of us could imagine. Years of peace, years of changed life, settled into a calm rhythm after that night. The men never came back. The gravel road was quiet again, and the house felt safe. Tim's mother still looked at me with a mix of wonder and disbelief, but her fear had faded. Sometimes I would catch her peeking out the kitchen window while she cooked, her lips curved in a small smile when she saw me sitting by the shed. Tim kept his promise. He visited me every day. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes we simply sat in the yard, saying nothing at all. We didn't need words. I could feel his moods, and he could sense mine. It was a connection stronger than most humans could imagine. I had lived in many places. Before caves, hollowed-out cliffs, abandoned dens, but none of them had felt like this. This was. Home seasons, turn years began to pass. I watched the seasons turn like pages in a book. In the spring, the air smelled of fresh rain and blooming flowers. Tim would walk down to the river, skipping stones while I waded in the shallows. Sometimes I would catch fish with a quick snap of my jaws, and he would laugh, calling me lazy for letting the river do the work. In the summer, the days grew long and hot. I would stretch my wings and glide over the forest, feeling the warm wind under me. Tim's mother would set a chair in the shade and watch him chop wood, occasionally glancing at me to make sure I wasn't up to dragon mischief. Autumn painted the trees in colors of fire red, gold, orange. Tim and I would walk the forest paths, the leaves crunching beneath his boots and my claws. He would tell me stories about human legends, brave knights, fearsome beasts, and far-off lands. Sometimes I wondered if my own story would one day become one of those tales. Winter brought snow. The world turned white and quiet. Tim built a larger shed for me, with thick walls, bedding, and even a small stove for warmth. I curled up inside on cold nights, listening to the wind outside, feeling a strange comfort in knowing I had shelter that was built just for me. A secret no more over time. Tim's mother stopped pretending I wasn't there. She would leave scraps of meat outside the shed or a bucket of fresh water on hot days. She even began to talk to me, though at first it was mostly short sentences like eat up or stay close. One summer evening, she surprised me. She stepped out onto the porch with 2 mugs in her hands, one for herself, one for Tim. She sat in the rocking chair, and after a long pause, she spoke. "You've been watching over us, haven't you?" Tilted my head. Tim answered for me. "Always." She nodded slowly, like she had already known the answer. That night she told me something important. Tim has a heart that's too big for his own good.
I worried it would get him hurt.
But you, she looked straight at me. You've kept him safe. For that I'm grateful. It was the first time she had thanked me out loud. The words stayed with me. Loss and healing. But time is a river that never stops. Rivers, no matter how calm, always carry both joy and sorrow. Tim's mother began to slow down. She moved more carefully. Her hands sometimes shook when she carried dishes. Tim did everything he could, cooked her meals, fixed the house, sat by her side when she was tired. Still, I could feel the weight of her years pressing down on her. One winter morning, the house was quiet, too quiet. I waited outside, my breath making clouds in the cold air. The front door stayed shut. Then men in white coats arrived. They carried her out on a wheeled stretcher. Tim walked beside them, his eyes red, his face set like stone. She had passed in her sleep, peacefully, no pain. But the silence she left behind was heavy. I kept close to Tim in the days after. I sat by the shed when he needed space. I stood at his side when he wanted company. Sometimes he would rest his hand against my scales and just breathe. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. A new chapter. Years continued to roll by. Tim grew older. His hair turned gray, then silver. But his spirit never dimmed. He married. He had a daughter. She was fearless, just like her father. The time she saw me, she ran straight to my side and hugged my leg. Tim tried to pull her back, but I lowered my head so she could climb onto it. She squealed with joy as I lifted her onto my back. From that day on, she called me the flying horse. I didn't correct her. She would ride on my back through the forest, her laughter echoing through the trees. In her eyes, I was not a dangerous beast. I was her friend. The family I never expected to die was no longer just a creature hiding in the forest. I was part of a family. Tim built me a new shelter, a proper home with solid walls, a warm bed, and shelves where I kept shiny trinkets and gifts they gave me. At Christmas, they included me in their celebrations. I would receive fresh venison or bright ornaments to decorate my space. I never asked for anything, but they always gave. And in return, I gave the only thing I could: my protection, my loyalty, my presence. For years, the little piece of land we shared felt untouched by the outside world. The only sounds were laughter, the hum of summer insects, the crackle of winter fires. It was almost enough to make me believe this peace could last forever. But deep down, I knew better. I had seen enough of the world to understand peace is precious because it is fragile. And one day, the sky would darken. And when it did, I would have to make the hardest choice of my life.